What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Always Compete Seahawks podcast. I'm Sam. I'm going to be all by myself today, but I will deliver a great episode nonetheless. We're going to be talking about breakout candidates for the Seattle Seahawks. We're at the point of free agency about 11 days in by the time of recording, and probably by the time of posting, where we have a general idea of what the team has done. There's not going to be a whole lot of big moves left. We know that. We have a general idea of what the team is going to do and what the team will look like by the time free agency comes. We have signed a lot of guys, more guys than Pete Carroll, more money and more guys than Pete Carroll and John Schneider have ever signed in their regimes, if you want to give that title. So I find it very interesting to kind of break down some benefiters of that and some beneficiaries might be the word, some beneficiaries of that, and some guys who also, for being signed, will benefit from that. And I'm going to go through this list of guys who I think have the opportunity to break out for the Seattle Seahawks. Now, when I define breakout, I don't mean Pro Bowl, All-Pro, top at their position here. I'm talking about guys who go from backup players or average players on the Seahawks, or guys who we just added that were average or slightly above average, to guys who could break out and genuinely be good. I'm going to kind of highlight how I think they might break out when I get to the actual player themselves. And by the way, I'm not saying that these guys are going to break out. These are guys who I think could break out. So don't get mad at me if one of these guys on the list has a stinker of a year. It's not my fault. But anyways, diving right in with my number 5 pick. This is in order, so I'm going to go from guys who I think have the highest opportunity to break out to guys who have the lowest. I'm going to go with Alton Robinson. I think Alton Robinson has been a very quiet beneficiary of these first 11 days of free agency. The team has not signed any big ends. They have not. They have not signed. You know, when you're talking about a 3-4, you usually get beefier ends to play over the guard or play directly over the tackle or play somewhere in that gap area. We cut Carlos Dunlap. We've cut Kerry Hyder. We have not re-signed Rasheem Green. We have only re-signed one player on the defensive line, and that is Al Woods. This is a position group that is very much open, and Alton Robinson was pretty successful. He has a great power game. He is very successful in putting his hands in the chest of an offensive lineman and driving them back to the quarterback. He's good at that, and he will continue to be good at that, especially in a system where he will be lining up overhead and over top of linemen much more. We're talking about guys who have benefited. Like I said, very quiet beneficiary. Not a lot of people have been talking about him. I thought he had a chance to break out last year. I think the system might benefit him better just due to where his skills kind of rest. And also looking at that edge room, we're probably going to add another guy there. However, when you look at who's going to be on the edge, you have Darrell Taylor and Uchenna Nwosu, who are both on the edges, who are both going to be the far edges, being outside of the tackle. You're kind of looking around like, who else is here? Who else might be able to fit in there? And you cut Carlos Dunlap, you cut Kerry Hyder, you cut Benson Mayowa. That's another guy I forgot to mention. With Alton Robinson being one of the few ends by title on the roster right now, I think that he has a very good chance to see some more success than he has in recent years in this upcoming season. At number 4, I'm going to go with Cody Barton. Cody Barton has been getting very, very high praise from Pete Carroll, John Schneider, and obviously we just cut franchise icon Bobby Wagner. So we're probably looking at a team that is looking for a replacement at his position, and we really don't know whether they're going to, and going in, I honestly expected that they were going to sign a linebacker when Miles Jack hit the market. I was expecting them to make a run at that. I was expecting them to make a pretty decent run at that. And when we're here and the only linebacker they signed is Joel Iggy from the Bears. I'm not going to try to pronounce that last name. Sorry. Iggy from the Bears. Looking at him, he's mostly a linebacker. He's mostly a special teams linebacker. He's a little bit more of a versatile sideline to sideline linebacker. I like how Cody Barton benefits from this. He's going to be the best cover linebacker on the roster. He might get a few interceptions next year. He might get a few batted passes. I think when they put him in Bobby Wagner's role, a role that I think as many Seahawks analysts have pointed out, he's much better fit for than what they've put him in the past with that Sam role. I think he'll probably fit much better in a Mike linebacker role, which is kind of that he's been known to be very smart and a great leader. At least that's what Pete Carroll and John Schneider have said. However, I know that going into the draft in 2019, he was regarded as one of the more smart defensive players in the draft coming out of Utah. I think that him commanding a defense, even though a lot of people expect Jordan Brooks to fill that slot, I think Jordan Brooks played very, very well at the position he was in last year, kind of playing around with some both Mike and Will. Mike and Sam. I think Cody Barton makes a lot of sense in that Mike spot, in that middle linebacker slot, calling plays, commanding the defense, and I think letting Jordan Brooks do what he can do best, which is just play fast and play difficult and let Cody Barton kind of be the brains of things. Remember, he's also been in this defense longer. I think it might make a little bit of sense there. For a potential breakout guy. At number 3, I'm going to drop in Drew Locke. I think Drew Locke is a guy who has a very decent chance to break out. And what I defined by breaking out, I said I was going to define how guys may be breaking out. I think Robinson might move into like a 3, 4, 5 sack kind of guy like Rasheem Green was with us last year. I think that Cody Barton might have 140 plus tackles. I think he might be a very effective cover linebacker because he's going to be getting a lot of snaps. I think Drew Locke could break into a average above average quarterback, which he will be for the rest of his career. I've said this in my social media. I think Drew Locke has a very good chance of breaking out. The guy has a tremendous arm, and getting that little confidence boost that he might need, switching teams, going to new coaches who he knows who they'd like them, and also having that fire lit under him. If this is a job that's not handed to me, it's a new building, I have to prove them right. He mentioned this in his press conference, which, by the way, was pretty much phenomenal for him. Answered questions very professionally, came off a guy who's hungry, came off a guy who knows that in Denver, that's not acceptable for how he played in Denver. So with him talking like this, with him talking like he's a guy who knows he needs to win games. He knows that he needs to win games, and he knows that he needs to fight hard for that quarterback role. I think he could turn into a 25 touchdown, 10 interception quarterback. I really think he can. The interceptions and the consistency are going to be the big problem here. But when you look at how he played in his first 5 games in Denver at the end of his rookie year, when they had his original OC, he was cooking. And then they bring in a new OC who doesn't really play very well into his strengths. And then they start bringing in some more QBs, mixing in guys who they think might, and then he gets benched. All of that, the young quarterback is going to play into his psyche. Drew Locke knows that he has a team that wants him, a team that respects him, and a team that is going to give him a chance for a starting job this year. That alone might be good enough to propel him into a more consistent and trustworthy quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. And if the Seahawks see Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, let's say we're really bad this year, if we see Bryce Young and CJ Stroud as the guys, then he'll go to another team, get paid money, and play that exact role. So that's what I see in Drew Locke. Moving on to number 2. I have 5 guys, and I'm kind of putting them in order as I go, and this is really tough for me. I'm going to go with Uchenna Nwosu. I think Uchenna Nwosu is a guy who, coming onto the Seahawks, playing in a 3-4 scheme where he's going to be the rushing outside linebacker, the guy gets pressures, man. PFF did this, top 15 in pressures, actually just below Darrell Taylor. Fun fact, just below Darrell Taylor, has similar sack numbers, which I think is funny. Clint Hurt will hopefully help in this, but we need to finish on sacks much more, kind of an off topic, but that's obvious. If Uchenna Nwosu can play can put the advanced stats like he did on paper, like he did in LA with the Chargers, I think we have a special player here, man. I think this is a guy who is uber talented. He's a guy who can drop into the flat and cover linebackers. Hell, maybe even a tight end. I think this is a guy who is an incredibly good blend of power and speed at the pass rush position. I watched game film of Uchenna Nwosu where there was one clip where he literally bull rushed Terron Armstead, who just got tons of money from the Miami Dolphins, where he literally bull rushed Terron Armstead into the quarterback, into Drew Brees, getting the sack. And then I watched the next clip where he was facing off at Trent Williams, and he runs right around him. That's the kind of talent this guy has, the kind of upside this guy can bring to a roster. And when you're giving him money, $10 million kind of money, and you're bringing him in to let him be the primary pass rusher in your game, he's going to benefit very much from Darrell Taylor being on the other side. with him putting in so many pressures. They're going to have to put the running back and pass plays somewhere if they are blocking him. They're going to have to put him somewhere. I really like Uchenna Nwosu's situation. I love his talent. I love his upside. And I think he can really turn into a phenomenal player with the Seattle Seahawks. I think that he has the opportunity to go for 7, 8, 9, hell, even 10 sacks next year. I think that's the kind of upside this guy can bring. I think this guy could be, if you're looking for to bet with your Seahawks friends, this could be a sneaky Pro Bowl selection next year at outside linebacker. That's just my thoughts on that. Number one, this is a guy who I have loved since the moment we picked him. I'm very active in the Seahawks Twitter social media game. There's a group chat that I'm in. STE, shout out to the guys. Seattle Twitter elites. And pretty much what we talked when we drafted Trey Brown, he had his DMs open on Twitter, and we added him to our DC, and he said, "Let's get to work." It was very good. It was very fun. And I began watching tape. I began looking at the PFF grades, and I'm like, wait a minute. This guy isn't just a personality. This guy can play damn good football. And that who my number one is. Trey Brown, cornerback. Free agency did this man very, very right, at least through this point. When you look at how Trey Brown may have benefited from this first week of free agency, the man is sitting in an outside cornerback room where the only other player who knows how to play outside corner on this roster is Sidney Jones. He also just had knee surgery where he said that he claimed that he wasn't healthy. His knee hadn't been healthy for like 3 or 4 years. And the doctors told him that. They're like, hey, man, you've had knee damage for a long time. We're going to fix you up, and this is going to make you feel really good. And he said that his knee has felt very good recently. And he thinks that he's very confident. He's a competitor. He's a talker. He's a very confident young corner. Another thing that you need in a corner that's very young. This guy's a dog. When he played for the Seahawks last year, he was among the best in his time slot, which is only about 4 to 5 weeks of him actually starting games. However, in that slot of games that he played, the guy allowed I think he allowed like a bottom 10 passer rating, a bottom 10 completion percentage to when he was targeted in games. This is a guy who's phenomenally physical, a phenomenal, almost like a gnat. He's a very small corner for a Pete Carroll system, especially for an outside corner. The guy's 5'9", not really the typical Pete Carroll build that you usually see. And guys like Richard Sherman, Byron Maxwell, Shaquille Griffin, Brandon Browner, all those guys were very big, long, lanky, kind of stronger physical corners. Trey Brown is very physical. He does not really anything else. He's strong for his size as well. This guy's a dog. They're giving him the reins, I think. I think they're giving him the total reins. If he can be healthy, man, this is a guy who's very, very talented and could break into a number one corner for the Seahawks for many years to come. That's going to wrap it up for this video. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. As always, subscribe, drop a like, ring that bell so you'll be notified every time we drop videos. We're dropping videos on a much more consistent basis than we have really ever before. So stay tuned, man. Come on, subscribe if you haven't already. We'll see you in the next video. Peace out.